The internet. We all think of it as this vast, free, ever expanding, unlimited source of information and entertainment. But as it turns out, our beloved internet might not be as free as we had hoped. Hello, and welcome back to the FreeNet podcast. I'm your host, Nick Campbell, and tonight I'm going to be talking about a very important topic, the internet, and all of its shady rules, regulations, censorships, and sometimes maybe a lack thereof. Most people today go to the internet for their daily source of news, entertainment, shopping, or whenever they just need to look something up. In fact, only 11% of American adults don't use the internet, according to a study by Pew Research Center. And that percentage is shrinking by the year. With this many people connected to the internet and relying on it for many important daily activities and services, it is becoming ever more important that the internet grows safer. While on the other hand, without this freedom online that has become a staple of the internet, it would lose all that made it great in the first place. Thus comes the problem of censorship, control, freedom, and safety that has been growing and spreading across the internet at alarming rates. With more people online on a day-to-day basis, the issue becomes even more important. When I asked certified computer forensic investigator and Salesforce administrator Joel Magnuson about said issue, his response was this: in order to maintain and ensure the success and openness of the vast computer network we call the internet, a lot of moving parts managed by a lot of players and many interests need to play well together. He went on to state, this coordination requires regulated business practices, agreed upon technical standards, and fair play bandwidth sharing based on good old-fashioned morals. In this respect, a well-regulated internet is crucial to this very existence. Magnuson is an experienced professional who works in a field that heavily involves the use of the internet, as well as the systems that define it. This internet needs a well-balanced, fair, and true set of guidelines that help keep it safe, fair, and free all at once. And as this podcast continues, we'll be diving deeper into the issues with our current system, the stories of internet users like you and I, and a way to make sure the future of the internet is one that everyone can enjoy together. Magnuson says, the internet is meant to be a place of community and of free and open communication. The vast majority of humans connecting to the internet are just there for some info, some FaceTime, some Netflix, and to chill. However, you can't shout fire in a crowded theater, and you can't be allowed to manipulate the free market of natural politics by taking advantage of that openness. How much of this can be solved by technology? A lot. How much can be solved by common sense and shared responsibility? A lot more. A pressing issue of the internet and its freedom is government involvement. In 2008, Google decided to start releasing transparency reports. These reports show how many takedown requests have come from each country that has access to Google and their government. According to the most recent annual transparency report, the United States alone has made 7,964 removal requests to Google and has named 109,936 items for removal since 2009. Now, while Google does not comply with every single one of the requests made by the government, the information that even the Democratic government of the United States has been making so many attempts to control and remove content from the internet is worrying. As a graph provided by Google shows, the number of requests has only been increasing in recent years, and it is foreseeable that it will continue to grow. But the government isn't the only threat to the safety of the web. There's a circulation of misleading news content, facts, and other various media. With all the fake information circling around out there, major internet companies needed to do something. The secondary problem with this lies in what they chose to do. Google leads the way with its global news initiative. The GNI works by favoring certain news outlets over others in the search algorithm, as well as helping certain organizations to monetize their content more effectively. They also ended up expanding this use over to YouTube. In a journal on Info Today, Sean Gills wrote that the best way to handle the widespread circulation of misleading and apocryphal news content on the internet was to arm the public with basic research skills. Unfortunately, following months of pervasive news stories, major internet companies opted for censorship. However, now, Google isn't the only company to create such a program. Twitter announced it will emit content that constitutes disruptive behavior on its platform. Now, certain results are filtered out of the search feature. Apple News also followed suit when it launched its midterm election section. This section is compiled sources curated by editors from Apple News. Lastly, Facebook announced that it would reduce the visibility of posts that had been flagged as false by their users or by the company's own internal editors. A major issue with this is that news and information spread is closely and tightly controlled by these internet companies, which proves a threat because it effectively eliminates the freedom of the internet and puts in place a structure for these internet companies to remove content at their own discretion, as well as make it easier for these companies to censor or completely block out certain viewpoints from view by other people of the internet. Now, it's obvious that doing so would be very detrimental to our society as a whole, as it's important to society to get both sides of every story. But those direct ways of control and manipulation of the internet are not the only threats to the freedom of the web. Two recent acts by both the United States government and the EU Parliament. These acts are net neutrality, the removal of it, and Article 13. While Article 13 is an EU article, so it may be easy to think it won't affect us here across the ocean, the internet is all connected together into one big web. Whatever affects one part of the world will affect the rest of the internet. This article furthers the threat of copyright strikes and threatens fair use. It's dangerous because one of the defining parts of the internet, user-created content, is not threatened by the overhanging worry of a copyright strike, or even if it is fair use. The people who passed this article were doing it with good intentions, but it has very dangerous consequences. The other of the two threatening recent acts is net neutrality. Net neutrality, as of now, is the principle that internet service providers should enable access to all content and applications regardless of the source, and without favoring or blocking particular products or websites. Recently, the FCC stated it would remove net neutrality rules, and in December 2017, they repealed it. I recently interviewed Don Campbell, Chief Information Officer for the Board of Bar Overseers for the Supreme Judicial Court of Massachusetts, and this is what he had to say about the issue.
I'm against net neutrality. I don't believe that the internet should be throttled based on who can pay what, because then you're in one of those societies where the rich are going to get richer and the poor are going to get poorer. And access to the internet is nowadays, I see it, that's a right everybody has.
Currently, there is an effort to restore net neutrality, and it is very important that it succeeds. Without net neutrality, ISPs, or internet service providers, have free reign to do whatever they want with the internet. And net neutrality is the only thing that has kept such a thing from happening so far. A worry of ISPs being able to throttle internet speeds for certain people, raise prices of features, and entirely block access to certain sites, apps, and other features of the internet is obvious danger to our free internet. While it is important to keep the internet free, it is also important to keep it safe. This is where the balance that Magnuson had mentioned in his interview comes into play. The internet is filled with dangerous, bad, and sometimes downright evil things happening, and something needs to be done about it. When I interviewed fellow internet citizen Marin, she had this to say about her experience on the internet.
I think that regulation is necessary because there is so much horrible stuff on the internet. There's all kinds of horrible things. But there needs to be actual people behind it. It can't be algorithms, because the algorithms have no idea what they're doing.
There are some problems that admittedly can only be solved by the control of these internet companies and these governments. It's just imperative that they go about it in a sensible way, without ruining the internet for everyone else. Now, after all that comes the big question. How can we fix this and save the internet? What can people do as individuals to help this cause? And how can we spread information on this very important and pressing issue to a more widespread audience? The future of the internet is in our hands. People need to stay alert and knowledgeable of what is happening to the internet. As individuals, you can stay in the flow of what is happening to the internet. Petitions are always circling around the internet, and while you might not think they do much, just letting these companies and lawmakers know how many people are supporting of or against the idea is very powerful. Another way is to continue to spread this information across the internet. It is important that the internet remains this vast, free space that it is today.